what I realized is all these cool band T-shirts that I thought I had are buried somewhere, and I couldn't scrounge them up. I have a good Jimi Hendrix tie-dye, and then I've got a couple Zeppelin T-shirts.
Oh, so you're buying from before your own era.
Exactly.
And you have to buy concert T-shirt is a badge of honor.
It is.
Right. So it's not like you can go in the Army and get shot and then get a Purple Heart and then have never been in the Army and wear a Purple Heart. Mm-hmm. So you need to be careful with
what I'm buying.
Right. Go buy you a Train T-shirt the next time you see them.
Well, how about this? I got a T-shirt for a concert that I didn't go to this year that I wanted to go to. Well, Dead & Company was playing the Sphere in Las Vegas, and my buddy here did a whole bunch of shirts. That was the shirt that I was going to wear, but it had a little stain on it this morning.
The Dead & Company were at Bonnaroo. We went to Bonnaroo 7 years in a row.
How cool.
From 13 to 20. And the Dead & Company were at Bonnaroo, and they gave them, the headliner at Bonnaroo doesn't come on until like 11 p.m. Mm-hmm. And so the Dead & Company were given the 11 p.m. 3 nights in a row, and the sets were unique. Well, they had a captive audience. They had the same 80,000 people every night.
Oh, I'm sure.
So the fact that they were that versatile, Fish was similar, but they played something. I think they played Mountain Dew one night for like 31 minutes. But jam band, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, think about, I just love the idea of John Mayer, like, basically being the front man for Dead & Company, and him probably growing up listening to that music and inspiring him, and then next thing you know, you're like, I'm on stage with Bob Weir, like, singing all these songs. I mean, how crazy would that?
Well, you got Deacon Fry doing the same thing for the Eagles.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
He filled in for his dad. Yeah. And then they're also utilizing Vince Gill.
No way, I did not know
Vince Gill and Deacon Fry. And so the cool thing about it is when Henley introduces the band, he'll say, I'll tell you how good Glenn Fry was. He'd say, it took 2 people to replace him. Mm-hmm. So that is what, when it takes 2 people to replace you. But that's got to be a dream come true for Mayer. We went to the Super Bowl with the Panthers.
Yeah.
So the Panthers are in the Super Bowl.
What year was that? I can't remember.
Maybe 16, 17?
Sounds about right.
It's the 50th Super Bowl, so it'd have to be around 16. Mm-hmm. So we go to and then we're invited to this party. And I'm talking about it was a party. Mm-hmm. And so the ESPN personalities were like the hosts of the parties. And you walk in, I was in the bathroom with A-Rod and Shaquille O'Neal.
No way.
And so these people are all over the party. So the 4 of us walk in, and we got 4 sports fans, but I think we only got 1 music fan. Mm-hmm. So we walk in, and they're saying, look, over there, there's such and such and such and such, and you're recognizing all these people. And I said, fellas, the living members of Grateful Dead are the band. This thing is like going to your prom, and Grateful Dead is the band. And I went up and I sat on the corner of the stage, and they said, You're not going to mingle? I said, no. I said, the Grateful Dead is within a hand touch. Of course, sans Garcia. Yeah. No, I'm sitting here and the whole time. But eventually, it was a good experience. So Grateful Dead has been a theme already here today.
It has?
Yes.
Well, yeah. I'm looking at the penguin sticker right there, and there's definitely a little bit of feeling of the Steal Your Face kind of logo on there, but
no, the penguin. Yes, the fact
a little bit.
Yes, I'm sure there's. I don't think that's a copyright problem.
I'm not going to say anything.
No.
How did you get your radio show on the Penguin?
Since it seems like we got a couple of minutes, when COVID hit, the store had been open for 4 months.
Okay.
So in April of 2020, we did like $200 that month.
Killed it.
That month. And I thought, okay, we have opened this thing at the exact wrong moment, and we need to do something. So we were looking at Facebook, and we put together an idea based on a lot of things where we would have a show here in the store, video the show live on Facebook, and sell records.
Awesome.
So it was a matter of, hey, you pull up a record, you tell a little something about it.
Yeah.
People would put in the feed, I want one. So the first night that we did it, we sold 60 records in 2 hours. Okay. We just had a month where we sold 15, and now we sold 60 in 2 hours. So let's try again next Thursday night. Well, a gentleman saw us do it and said, let me give you some tips on how I would do it if I were you. And so we tried his way of doing it, and we went from 60 to 37. Okay, that's no good. So the third week we did it, we went back to 67. And then before that summer was over, we had a show where we sold 400.
Oh my gosh.
400 records in pretty much, 180 minutes, 3 hours. So we're on this show, and I was the front man for that. And we had started advertising with the Penguin. So the lady that was our advertising, Kristen, who I got to give a lot of props to, she walks in the door one day, and she asked for me because she had been working with our manager on advertising. And I came out, and she said, okay, it is you. And I thought, well, what do you mean it's me? Sure, it's me. She said, I thought you had hired an actor to sell those records. She said, we had no idea that you'd be here. And this sounds sort of, it doesn't come out real humble, but, so I said, okay. She said, we want to know if you'd be interested in having your own radio show on the Penguin. And I said, I'm interested. So then I go and meet the great Bo Gunn.
Yep.
And we sit down and we're having a conversation. And Chris, it's been a long time since I've been interviewed for a job. But this thing started to feel like, heck, I'm being interviewed. I'm being sort of sized up, tested. Yeah. And when it got through, he said, I'm satisfied. We'll give you 3 shows. Wednesday night from 7 to 8. And what I envision is I want you to play vinyl records. It's going to be called the Vinyl Revival. And you just, unless you got 2 words you can't say, and other than that, do what you want. Play variety. He said, you know sort of our purview. He said, play variety, have fun with it. So we did those 3 shows, and the next time we do a show, tomorrow night, it'll be our 144th.
Unbelievable.
So
so cool.
but they for some reason thought I was like a hired hand to come sell records, but no, I'm here.
Well, and you've got such a good radio voice. Like, I've listened to your show, and it just sounds right, you know? Like, some people have it, some people don't. So, like, anybody in your family on TV production, anything?
I think it sounds like a country hick, right? When I hear it, I'm like, I don't want to hear that anymore. I mean, the first time I listened to it, and after we did an ad, so we do an ad for the show and mix the story in, I thought, man, that's awful. And the guy, he said, the silky smooth southern tones. And I was like, dude, if it's that good, ESPN, come find me.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know of anybody. It's distinctive, obviously, because I see people. I've had an experience in a restaurant where I'm sitting in a booth speaking to my friends, and someone comes from around the corner and says, "Hey, Tony," and I'm like, "Susan, I haven't seen you in, 25 years?" She said, "Oh, but that voice." And I said, "Okay."
Oh my gosh, that's good. I guess I should have asked maybe before the radio show is what made you want to start the record shop here?
I owe all that to my late sister. she indoctrinated me into music, and it was Elvis and the Beatles,
Awesome.
and the Dave Clark Five, and occasionally some other folks, Herman's Hermits. So she indoctrinated me into music, and she would buy records, and so that was she and I's bond, right? We go to the record store and everybody buy a record or two, and that was the big thing. And so I always wanted my own store, but I didn't think, the good news is if I'd have opened a record store right out of college, then I'd have been 5 years from the CD craze and probably would be hungry somewhere. But so I always wanted to open it. And then she fell ill in 2016. And Chris, the last thing she ever said to me is, if you're going to open your record store, you need to do it right now. So that set us into we used 16, 17, 18, and most of 19 to find our used records, to source those.
Got it.
We know where we can get new. And so I always wanted to do it. Late 19, vinyl sales are raging. Vinyl's getting ready to pass CDs for second place. Streaming has won this game.
Of course, right. Yeah.
Has won
It's
this
too
game.
easy.
So, and I said, okay, I'm going to try it. And back to what I said a couple minutes ago, had a tremendous start in December, January, and February. And then when COVID came along, we took oh no, we're in a non-essential retail in the middle of a pandemic. There wasn't a formula for that.
Who's to say music's not essential?
I think music's
I think
essential.
it's extremely essential.
I think it unites all of our souls. I do.
I am, at pretty much any given part of the day, I'm listening to music or thinking about something in my head of what I listened to earlier, or actually concentrating on some work. But I mean, like, truly, like, every minute of every day, like, music is very much a part of my daily routine.
Well, I think I play it even when working, because I find it quiet to be distracting. Somebody do something.
Yeah.
Somebody walk in the door, say something. But no, I've got some radio. I'm still a radio guy, and so I've got some radio station on every day, all day. Just hear a new song, hear an old song. You get in a tough situation. You have had maybe a mind bender of a problem, since we sort of do the same thing every day. You've had a mind bender of a problem, and then, a song comes on, and the right song makes it all better.
Well, and it's amazing how you can hear a song and it can take you back to a specific memory, and like, it's, you can like feel it, like your hair might stick up on your arms, or like, it's just it just evokes those emotions like almost immediately.
And I think emotions are something that if you came and worked the counter one day, you'd find the oohs and the ahs incredible. Our younger crowd loves to play newer stuff. So I walked in one day and I said, the vibe today just sort of isn't music store. And they said, well, what are you going to put on? So we put on Abbey Road, and I just skipped to come together.
Yeah.
And I got 12 people that are singing it.
Yeah.
And so those are, yes, they're handheld memories is what I call them.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that it's funny how, trends and fads go. Like you said, if you had started the record, business 30 years ago, 20 years ago, you wouldn't hit it. But now it's like come back around, where even new bands, and you were showing me a couple, new bands are coming out with vinyl. And it's like, it's a huge, it's really popular again, hugely popular.
By the time 1993 came, a record store was trying to buy CDs in as much volume as they could. And the labels would tell them that in order to buy 10 CDs, you have to buy 2 pieces of vinyl. So you'll look around every now and then and you'll come across a Pearl Jam album, and you'll say, okay, when was that pressed? Well, it was pressed in 1993. Oh, I didn't know albums were still being pressed at that point. Well, so those items are gold. They were original pressings back in the day, whenever the day really is. So now what we see is every new album is on vinyl. And believe it or not, there are some on cassette. And Lou Reed last year even went as far as to release an 8-track.
No way.
Yes. So, you know, I guess it's post-mortem.
Lou Reed, Velvet Underground?
Yes.
Yeah.
Take a Walk on the Wild Side.
Yeah, Take a Walk on the Wild Side, yeah.
Maybe a little bit too wild for you, Chris. So, anyway, what we're seeing now is total reloads of catalogs. Genesis has done theirs in the last couple of weeks. We're watching Heart, the passing of Jimmy Buffett. So those guys, De La Soul has gotten everything back out, and those were originally pressed. And then there's an entire gap there that were never pressed, and they are being worked on as we speak.
Talking about music's a lot more fun than talking about accounting, huh?
Well, you know, accounting can be rewarding.
Yeah.
Accounting can put bread on the table.
That's right.
But accounting can be fun.
We make it. I try to make it fun. Hey, I'll tell you, whenever we're talking about accounting together, I'm having fun.
Okay.
You know,
well,
I'll give you that.
It is it's never reassuring when a new client says, I'm interested in working with you because you don't have the personality of wallpaper.
Exactly.
And I'm like, what? And they say, well, I mean, it's like you can talk to you.
Yeah.
And of course, it's just this is fun. This is memories, but your helpfulness to someone is much deeper.
Yeah.
You can get a little girl to squeal over a Taylor Swift album, and you can get a grown adult to squeal over the right tax liability.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think, just your approach to the way you do stuff, like when I walk into your office, it feels fun, and, I'm sitting in the conference room, and then you come in, and, it's not what you would expect when you're going to talk to your tax CPA.
Well, I take that as a tremendous compliment because I never wanted it to be that way.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people in our profession that are stuffy, and so be it, and plenty of people that are very, very formal. If you go to my website, I have a story about how much I had to spend on dry cleaning.
Oh man, I haven't read that.
When I was in my apprentice days. And I thought, I'm spending 10% of my income on dry cleaning. And, but no, I like being casual. It's a topic that is forced on people. They don't really want to deal with it. If you look at every professional in anybody's life, well, I need my insurance agent, and my attorneys had to get me out of a couple of jams. But if there wasn't a tax code, I wouldn't need you. And so, okay, so you're not interested in how you're doing? He goes, well, I wouldn't have 30% of my money taken out of my back pocket, and I'd think I was doing pretty good.
So how did you become an accountant, a CPA?
I was a starving cookie salesman.
Cookie salesman.
I don't know if you know this.
No.
When I got out of school with my undergraduate, I was at North Carolina Wesleyan. When I got out of school, I needed a job, right? You have proposed to a young lady, you're going to get married in December, you need to be able to support her. So my first job ever was as a Food Lion manager relief person. I was bagging groceries for Food Lion, it was time to graduate, and the guy said, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do next week? I said, well, I got to go home and find a job. And he said, well, our guys take vacations and I would need a relief person. So I went from store to store for a while, met the district manager with Keebler. I worked for the Hollow Tree.
Oh man.
Worked for the Hollow Tree.
That's dangerous.
It is. My paycheck said I believe in elves, stamped right on
No.
it. So, so I took that job, and about 7 years into it, just not really going anywhere. Not going anywhere. And so I had enough hours in accounting that I was that close. And so I went to UNCW, enrolled in a CPA candidacy program that would allow me to sit for the exam.
Yep.
And then I went cold turkey, officiating high school athletics. My wife had a job, and that's how we made it for me to get through school. And then after that, I got a job with a local firm. I got my license, I got my experience. I spent some time as a CFO, and then finally I decided I'm going to go out here and try it.
That's so cool.
So, starving cookie salesman picks CPA to try to get him out of a rut.
Yeah. And I saw an article today, and I've seen a bunch of articles, but someone forwarded me this one specifically, and it just talked about the shortage of accountants across the country right now.
Okay, I don't know how many millions of people are going to see this, but if you need a good job and you need a stable career and you don't think the tax code's going anywhere, the accounting profession needs you.
That's so true.
Oh my, it is. It's painful because, I mean, if you read the stats that are like in the School of Accountancy at Carolina or here at W, they're just dwindling, and you know it's no longer a low tech job. Software has, oh my gosh, the software gauge has been moved incredibly in just my 30 years. I know that artificial intelligence is something to be leveraged, but you still got to have people.
Absolutely.
You got to have people.
Well, and I think what the automation has done, and this is similar in a lot of industries, is it's taken a lot of the, let's say, like kind of like basic like fundamentals stuff and made that easier so that we could spend more time on value add activities, analysis, you know, looking into the future, you know, talking about different options and the best way to, you know, address an opportunity or mitigate a risk. And yeah.
You're spot on. See, I've always known that you were a lot smarter than your years.
Did I look?
No, not than you look. You're a lot wiser than your years. You know, 20 years ago, you would tell a client, okay, here's your charitable contributions, and here's how that number was built. And it's a number on a page in a box. The software can do that now. Put that number on that page, in that box. But they want to know, is my giving appropriate maybe for what I earn? Or how am I doing is what folks want to know. Yeah. That's their overall simple sentence. Do you see a better way? Is there an expense out of line? Do you think I have too much help? Do you think I need some more help? When should I get some? So anything value added and just general information. Law changes, exploding information out to your people.
You know, and when I was studying for accounting, so the way I became an accountant was my dad was a sales guy, successful sales executive. But he said, you know, the guys that typically are the ones are running the business, they know how the numbers work. And he said, so you should study accounting. And I was like, okay, sounds good. You know, like that was it.
Well, you know, my dad went with a different theory.
Okay.
He said that I should be an accountant or an undertaker.
Because those are the only...
That's right. And I told him, I said, well, I got into food first and everybody's got to eat. He said, no. He said, I think those are the two that make the better sense. But, you know, it's still a sales job too. And I think that's You know, I think some accountants have sat back and said, I'm a necessary evil, still an evil, and the world's going to come to me. But I think you do have to go out and show some folks some initiative, and, you know, I believe I always ask for the business.
Yep.
I was taught that early. At the end of a meeting, I'm not going to leave any mystery. We'd love to work with you. We think we can help you. I think it's also important sometimes to tell folks that, you know, you and TurboTax, you guys are still tight. Why don't you stay together? Because I think that's serving you well.
Yeah. You know, in the stigma, or not the stigma, but the stereotype of accountants is bean counter, wearing a green visor. And when I was in college,
don't forget ring around the collar.
Ring around the collar.
Okay,
yes,
that's important.
Yeah, and the pocket protector.
Pocket protector.
Yeah, 12 pencils or whatever.
Well, maybe even with a protractor in it.
Yeah, the protractor.
Okay. Or some geometry tool.
Yeah.
But the ring around the collar is important.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's important to add. But going through this, you know, people would, you know, jokingly, maybe not jokingly, but they're like, you know, you're just going to be a bean counter, all this and that. And I'm like, whatever. And, you know, now 12 years later, I guess, you know, after out of college, I'm like realizing how things have come full circle. And I get to spend so much time helping people. And the value that we're able to provide on a daily basis to help people not only achieve their business goals, but their personal goals, because their personal goals are tied to their, you know, business and other successes. And I didn't even realize what I was getting into when I started the business. And now I'm like, this is actually really cool. I'm an accountant and I'm having fun and I'm helping people. It's amazing.
You know when you do it as well.
Yeah.
So when you spend time with a client, it can be any given period, I think. 1 hour one day, all the way to a 6-month journey or a 10-year journey. You know when you're helping somebody. Mm-hmm. I think you also know when, okay, it's sometimes the hard part of the job is when you look at someone and say, this isn't working. We've got a broken model. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, especially with the advent of the big box stores, you know, that leaves a small guy in its wake. But I think you and I both have this in common, is that you know when you help somebody. Mm-hmm. You go, you know, they walk out of the meeting and you think, okay, all right, this career with its stigma, with its nerdiness, that seems to be shrinking in new people, valid and needed and probably in it for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. And you know, just the entrepreneurship that goes along with starting your own firm and building your own firm. And I mean, really, I would classify you as an entrepreneur first, you know, I mean, with, you know, all the different things, but I mean, how would you classify yourself as an accountant first, or an entrepreneur first, or a business owner?
I think that what I tell most of my clients is I'm a small business guy too.
Yeah. You
know, they come in and they say, you've been in my conference room. Mm-hmm. That thing is crazy. It's got a conference room table in it that was left by the previous tenant. So there's this big 10-chair conference room table. Well, they must be doing big business in here.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and you tell them and say, no, I'm a small business guy. There was once myself and one other person, and we've grown to that spot. But I feel like, I don't know if I'm an entrepreneur. I've tried a few things on the side, but being a small businessman and starting that firm is really focused on what my career can be long term, and quite frankly, how I can support my family.
Absolutely. So what year did you start Stroud Company?
If you look back, I went out in '93 when I got out of school.
Yep.
I tried it for my for myself for about 9 months. And then a local firm came to me and said, we'd like to buy your clients and come in with us. So I did that.
You sold your first business.
I sold my first practice.
Yeah.
That feels bad now that I'm saying it.
That is awesome.
So I sold it and I went in and I had a 4-year arrangement because you had to have 2 years of supervision by a CPA or 5 by yourself. So I thought when they called and said, okay, I'm going to shorten up a 5-year window to 2 years, I should do that. So I went in and we sold that and I practiced for 4 years with them. I kept my firm open. There were certain tasks that the big firm didn't want to do. So I held on to my payroll clients.
Brilliant.
And my wife would do those at home and leave the payroll in an envelope on our back porch. And people would come pick up their payrolls. That's bananas. You couldn't get by with that today if you had to. And so then I was out interviewing a client one day, a potential client, and they said, we need to stop you. We don't want to hear the spiel. We want you to come be our CFO. So I went in to do that for 4 years. And then on March the 6th of 2001 at about 11:16 in the morning, I was told by a gentleman that was buying that particular business that I was no longer needed. And so I'm unemployed and I need to do something. So then I started what you see now. So it's been on the Secretary of State's website for 31 years.
Got it.
But this iteration now is about 14 years old.
That's awesome. And so fast forward to today, how many employees do you have? How many partners do you have?
I have 2 partners, Missy and Marty.
Right.
I have 2 partners, and then I have, when they're all there are 20 of us.
Awesome.
And that just absolutely baffles me. I walk up and down the hall going, who are these people and why are they here? Because it just never, ever. Did I think I could be successful at this? Did I think it might be myself and 2 or 3 people for a long, long time? Yeah. So it baffles me.
Well, it says a lot about you that people are willing to jump on board.
It says a lot about them because, as they would say, he's just our front man. You can laugh at that all you want.
Man.
It's probably true.
Oh, that's so good. Well, it's just like you're the front man of the band, you know?
Well, they're good people. They are good people. They're committed. They, the 2024 term is, did they buy in? I think they're bought into service. I think they're bought into accuracy. And I think they're bought into honesty. And the use of honesty in this sentence is not about, the integrity of the work, though I think that that's great. But I think it's about the willingness to tell clients candid information. This isn't working, or can we try something different? What would that be? Well, you close down and go get a job. But no, that's the tough part of the business. I find that, interestingly enough, when you take on a new client, let's say you take on someone 30s or 40s, and then the next thing you know, they have recommended you to their parents. And so, if I'm good enough for mom and dad, that's humbling, that's validating. And then they move through life about another 10 or 12 years, and all of a sudden, my son's coming over to see you. He's getting ready to get his license for insurance. Help him.
Yeah.
So 3 generations is pretty cool.
That's really special.
I think so.
So when did you get your first employees, like in the second instance when you restarted, when did you hire your first employee?
That day.
Okay.
The day in March.
Yep.
Donna was with me at the, we were an ancillary medical practice.
Got it, okay.
And so she was helping round up information to feed to the buyer. So it didn't take a rocket science. They're up to something. They're selling. They're in the nastiest IRS audit ever known or something. So once we sold, I told her, I said, I'm going to try this. Would you like to come aboard? And so she said yes. And then we went out and then pulled a major upset one day as far as a client bid. It was us against 3 mega firms, and we won. And I had to hire somebody immediately because of that. And at that point, it started to go exponential instead of one at the time.
That's awesome. I believe they refer to that sometimes as the flywheel. Is once it gets going, you get good people on board, which means you could bring on more clients. You get more good clients, and more people want to be a part of it. And then because you got good people on board, you got a good culture and other people, and then the flywheel.
I've not heard the flywheel. I love buzzwords. This particular client put us all in a conference room and had 4 firms represented. And the other 3 monsters compared to us. I mean, it's us and 3 giant apes. And so they told us the scope of the work all together. That's a very interesting approach.
That is, yeah.
Very interesting approach. They told us the scope of the work, and then we drew numbers out of a hat, and we were going to go in and had 45 minutes apiece. So I drew number 3. And I thought, oh no, I want to go first or I want to go last, but not in the middle. And so we went through the interview process, and that was on a Thursday. That was on a Thursday. And the following Monday, I went home thinking, that's a great experience. I learned from it. We moved forward. They called on Monday and said, we'd like for you to come back this Thursday. I made the cut. I made the cut. So I go back the next Thursday, and Chris, they put numbers up on a overhead, old school overhead.
The projector screen.
Yes, the clear thing.
Okay.
They put the numbers up on the board, and they told me to just react to them.
Is this some kind of social experiment? Or?
It was an experiment. And guess who the guinea pig was?
Yeah.
So I mentioned this number, I mentioned that number, and at the end of the meeting, I'm escorted out the door. I don't see any other players. I thought, okay. And she says, we're interested in taking the next steps to engage you. Dude, you talk about needing to play poker here for just a second. Don't start jumping up and down. Breathe. I said, okay. Because the potential fee from that client was going to double our operation. And so, calm, cool, you've been here before, act like you've been here before.
Yeah, act like you've been here before, yeah.
So so that put us into motion, and I told them things during the interview. I said I could call my office, and the only other person that works for the firm could come over, and my whole firm would be here. And then it would be, I said, okay. They said, well, who would do the work? I said, well, I would do the work because I'm pretty much the only person that can. So about 6 months into the engagement, they asked me one day, those jokes you made the first day, they were jokes, right? I said, no, it was
There's 2 of us.
But we're 3 now.
Yeah.
And so, but we were off and running.
Very cool. And then from there, just kind of just step by step, picking up
Growth,
more clients.
pick up a couple of partners. Now we've got...
when did you bring partners in?
I had a partner in the... I think my first partner came in 2004,
Okay.
and went out to do her own thing somewhere around 11.
Okay.
October the 4th, 2011 at 4:15. I remember these moments. So anyway, if you want to know when she left exactly. And so from there, Missy joined.
Okay.
And Missy had been there a while, and then Marty somehow figured out that the lady had left, my previous partner left, and she walks in the door 2 days after he left and said, "Tell him that Marty's here, and I know he needs some help." And
So she wasn't working for you at this time?
No, she had been with me.
Got it.
And then left to raise her family and work in another location. So the three of us now have the mixture of ownership has grown over the years, and now the three of us are walking the walk, and
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
And things they don't really teach in accounting classes or studying for the CPA exam are leadership, personal skills, how to build a team, how to manage a team. How did you figure out how to do that type of stuff?
All right, so I'm not going to be controversial. Working a year for Food Line will teach you a lot
Fair enough.
about employee relations.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. So, because good people are in the supermarket business. Leadership, I think you'll learn a lot of it by fire. I don't know. I've studied a lot about World War II because my dad was in World War II. There were a lot of people that didn't believe Eisenhower was the right pick
Keep going.
to lead us.
Yeah.
And so did he make it up as he went? Maybe, but he was highly effective. So at the same time, I thought, okay, I can build this, and there'll be some hard knocks along the way. So I think prepared for leadership. I don't know if you're ever prepared for it, but doggone it, when you got to do it, you'll find a way to do it,
Yeah.
or you'll have a bad result. The driving force for me was every time we hired somebody, to me, I'm now responsible for helping you buy groceries, pay the power bill, and nothing makes me happier than when an employee buys a new home. Now you're a little bit more vested with me here in this partnership.
Yeah.
So we did that. How to run a business was a little bit of the training, but leadership, and then I think salesmanship is unfortunately just a God-given gift. I watch a lot of people trying to learn sales from script and that kind of thing. But did I answer your question?
Very much so.
Okay.
So two things I want to go back to is one is it's amazing you brought up Eisenhower, because I've got some unofficial advisors. I call it like where I'll buy you a beer, tell you my issues, and you can help me kind of solve them. It's, successful business folks, but I do have one business advisor where it's actually a paying relationship, and we meet once a month, and he kind of helps me just keep the ship rowing in the right direction. And every time we meet, we talk about Eisenhower, and he told me this story. And he's told me this. He's an older guy. His name's Bill Clark, and he's a really, really cool, interesting guy. But he told me the same story like 3 or 4 meetings in a row. I was like, Bill, are you getting a little old? Did you forget you told me this story? And I told this to someone else, and what I realized is like, Chris, no, you're not listening to what he's saying, and that's why he needs to keep telling you this. But the story he told was that on the day, like the eve before D-Day when they invaded Normandy, he's got his 6 or 7 kind of generals underneath him. I forget exactly how many, but he knows they're walking into like an absolute ambush, right? Like they know how many people are going to die, what the casualties are going to be. And so he interviews, he spends time with each of his generals and says, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of that, how are we, going to do tomorrow? And everybody says, and he gets to the guy that's in charge of landing the boats and getting the troops onto shore. And he says, the tide and the wind and the weather and all this stuff is going against us. And Eisenhower simply says, can you handle it? And he says, yes, sir, I've got it handled. And the story goes that Eisenhower went to bed, slept 8 hours before D-Day, woke up the next day, and it was because he trusted his team that he had built so much that he knew his team was going to take care of what they needed to take care of. And yeah, it was a gnarly day and a lot of people died, but it was, at the end, it's successful. And so that story is all about, the organization is only as good as the team that you build.
My dad ran on the beach that day.
No shit.
My dad was born in 1917.
Oh my gosh.
And he ran on the beach that day. It caused him to have nightmares for a long, long time.
I can't even imagine.
The nightmare was the guy in the loader, the troop loader, that would drop into the water and they'd run. And he said that for the last mile or so to the shore, you could see the shore, that the guy just said over and over again, don't stop running. Don't stop running. It's the only thing the guy was just saying, because they had been told, you're going to have a friend go down that's running beside you. The medical people are here, are back there, but you have got to stop running for two reasons: for yourself and for the sake of the world. And I thought, okay, that's pretty heavy. But supposedly also Churchill asked Roosevelt in the last 48 hours, are you sure this is the right dude? Talking about Eisenhower. So there were doubts, lack of experience. And I don't think lack of experience has to create doubt.
Right.
I think if you're prepared for your moment, no different than the kid's first free throw in a high school basketball game. If you're prepared for that moment, you can succeed.
Wow. That's very interesting, connecting those dots and how things come up in conversation like that.
No, I'm a big history buff.
Yeah.
I wanna. He would spread out maps of Europe on our dining room table and refight that war constantly.
Well, I mean, just imagine, like, from World War II, you talk about your father who had PTSD, suffered from all of this, and like, the care and the awareness of what those soldiers were going through when they came back from World War II was probably significantly lower than what it is now today. And these guys were just expected to just come back and it's like, yep, go get a job, go back to real life, start a family. Well, that generation of people are like, I mean, it's
hardcore.
Hardcore, yes.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
But he always said that he thought they came home to a hero's welcome.
Okay.
And that the Vietnam veterans didn't. They came home to some sense of defeat, actually.
Yeah.
So, but he would tell folks, it's my mom, my sister, he and I, he would tell folks the most important thing he ever did was his military service to his country. And the three of us would stand there, okay, But no, it was very important to him. He was a patriot.
Is he still with us?
No. He was born in 17.
Okay.
So not to test your math, but he passed away in 2003. Okay. And there are plenty of days when I think that if he had seen some of the things that happened today, he couldn't have tolerated it.
Oh,
so it might be best he moved on.
Oh man, well that'll be part 2 of our next podcast.
Okay.
Is talking about what the hell's
These
going on in the world.
These guys are never going to have me back. They've just missed dinner and 2 movies, and one of them probably feels like they had a birthday since we got started.
Tony, thank you so much for.
Chris, I had no idea what to expect. I'm going to thank you, and in proper response, you are certainly welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Awesome. Oh, they want me to, the joke I was supposed to tell you. Now it's built up, right? Now you have to. No.
You can't believe how good this joke needs to be.
All right, it's got to be good. So you've got your advisory board. It's a doctor, it's a lawyer, and it's your accountant. 3 important people in life, right? And this guy is trying to figure out, of the three of these people, who's really the smartest, the doctor, the lawyer, or the accountant? And so he comes up with a pretty simple question to ask each of them. So he goes to the doctor first, and he says, "Doctor, what is the answer to 2 plus 2?" And the doctor says, "Well, based on our extensive research and clinical trials, 2 plus 2 equals 4." He says, "Okay, sounds good." Goes to the lawyer, and the lawyer says, "So what's 2 plus 2?" And the lawyer says, "Well, based on Johnson versus the state of Virginia in 1964, the Supreme Court ruled that 2 plus 2 equals 4." He says, "Okay, that sounds pretty good." And he gets over to the accountant. He says, "Mr. Accountant, what's the answer to 2 plus 2?" The accountant looks around. He gets up. He turns the lights off, and he dims the blinds. And he whispers. He says, "What do you want it to be?" So accountants can
See,
be
that makes us sound cool, actually.
Yeah. A little bit of creativity mixed in there.
I love that.
So,
I love that.
cool. Thanks, Tony. That was fun.
How bad was that? Okay.
Good.